Hello, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. Hope everyone's doing well. Some exciting news this morning if you want Ten Hag at Manchester United. Apparently he's agreed to come to Manchester United. He's got his heart set on a move to Manchester United. We'll be talking about that. Also, Leonardo, the technical director at PSG, is he potentially closing the door on Pochettino leaving? He's come out and said there's no issues, they get on very well and they've never discussed him leaving. And then a story from the Times saying that Manchester United players are becoming frustrated at the continued selection of Harry Maguire when he's clearly not playing well. More dressing room leaks? I don't think so. I think, I think we need to get to grips with the fact that we're not going to get players publicly come out and undermine a manager or a player ever again. Not this season, but ever again. But we will continue to get leaks, and it's quite interesting because it's probably true that if I was a United player, certainly if I was a centre-back, I'd be very frustrated at the continued selection of somebody who's not playing particularly well. But let's start. Let's start off with the big story. And look, let me read you it. It's coming from Sami Mokbel, who is a chief reporter for Daily Mail. It came out last night. He said Erik Ten Hag has taken English lessons as he prefers talks with Manchester United, which is interesting because being Dutch, he will speak fluid English anyway, so I don't know why he needs to have English lessons. Is that making you think maybe this isn't true? It then says Erik Ten Hag is said to have his heart set on a move to Manchester United at the end of the season. He would bring coach Mitchell van der Gaag with him to England should he find himself a Premier League job next season. Ajax are aware of Ten Hag's intention to leave at the end of the season following recent internal talks. He's studying English in a bid to ensure he has a fluent grasp of the language ahead of a possible move to the Premier League this summer. And that, obviously, again, that he's got his heart set on that move to Manchester United. So, look, I mean, the interesting thing we're going to get here is that we spoke about Ancelotti last night, and I said I don't think there's anything in the Ancelotti story. If anything, I think it's United trying to spin a positive around Pochettino. They're not going to be able to do it, are they? Because I was watching the last episode of Valhalla Vikings on Netflix last night. What a series. Watch it. It's really, really good. You can't spoil it for me now, even though there's not many spoils. But the reality is it was very good. And I came off that, looked at Twitter and all this Ten Hag stuff going on, and I'm like, Ten Hag's trending. The fans want Ten Hag. And if Ten Hag wants the United job, he's got his heart set on the job, I'm sure it's silly season. You know, it's definitely silly season. It's March. We haven't got loads of games in March. There's an international break in March. We've not played midweek. Manchester United always are headline news, and you know it's Thursday, bit quiet. Wednesday night, bit quiet around United. Ten Hag dreams of coming to Manchester United. It's non-committal. He's not signed a contract. It's easily refuted. It's not United in talks with him. So look, it could be a complete load of nonsense. But what is not nonsense is the mood and weight of opinion amongst the fans that they want this manager, and the club would be foolish to ignore that. Whether they go and get him or not, they would be foolish to ignore that because they don't have any trust in the bank. If they decide not to go for Ten Hag and let somebody else get him and we get Pochettino, I don't even think it needs to fail. I think people will go, well, this is just typically Manchester United again, arrogantly thinking they know what's best. And the problem that United have is that Sir Alex Ferguson's a great of the game. But he's not really on the board on a day-to-day basis. You know, he should be enjoying his retirement. That therefore leaves people like Richard Arnold, John Murtagh, Darren Fletcher, Matt Judge, people that you just wouldn't trust. And if they are going to say, we're not going for Ten Hag because we believe that Pochettino's the right man, I'm sorry, it's not like the Bayern Munich board. It's not like the Liverpool board. It's not like the Man City board. There's no trust with the Man United board. And that's the problem. The fans are more knowledgeable than the board. And some people will laugh at that, but it's actually true. I would trust any of you who are proper Manchester United fans to be on that board than some of the people who are already on it. And yet, our destiny over the next 3 years is in the hands of 4 or 5 people that I just don't trust. So I still believe that they'll try and get Pochettino, but it's very interesting that whether you're pro-Poch or not, sometimes you've got to open your eyes and look at the weight of opinion, and the weight of opinion is that they want Ten Hag. And that's not a good start for Pochettino at Manchester United if we don't get Ten Hag. And I don't know how they're going to manipulate the situation. I'm sure they probably will try to, or they're going to have to go for Ten Hag. You say being Dutch that you speak good English. Look at Van Hal again and that again. Yeah, but Arjen, I mean, my understanding of Europeans, especially the Dutch, is that they do speak English very, very good. We've had years and years of Dutch players coming to Manchester United. I'm sure he wants to improve his English, but I don't think he'd have a... You know, there's people like Bielsa who never learned the language at all. And, look, you know, so Ten Hag learning English for me is a bit of a smokescreen. I don't think that that's massively important. What is important, that there is that story that he wants the job. And if you're tuning in a little bit late, apparently Ten Hag has got his heart set on coming to Manchester United. This is a breaking story from last night. So what does that mean? I suppose that's what people want to know. What does it mean? Well, it's a declaration of interest from Ten Hag. The fans want Ten Hag. He wants to come to Manchester United. There's a deal that can be done. I would say that we are in silly season. We're going to get linked to players that we're not going to buy, and we're going to get linked to managers that we're not going to get or even talk to. So we do have to keep that in our back pocket. And I still would say, you know, when Man United haven't had talks with Ten Hag, when they do have talks with him, he might say, I'd love the job, but I want more control. And they go, well, you're not going to get it. And Poch is happy to take it without the control. So that might be a barrier. We might get to a point where Ten Hag says he doesn't want the job, like I said last night. But obviously, at this point, it's a declaration of interest. You know, this would be... And of course it would be a dream job. I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice. It is Manchester United. Can you shout out? Can you give a shout out to us, Preston North End ground staff, and good luck for the season, says Luke McDonald. Shout out for the ground staff at Preston North End. Preston North End always rings a bell for me. I can't remember why. Oh yeah, because that's where I thought McTominay would end up. Jack Lynch says, I would take Erik Ten Hag all day long and his coaching staff. Hopefully we'll see the best of Donny van der Beek, says Jack. Well, yeah, you know, look, I would like Ten Hag. I would like Ten Hag. I'm repeating myself, but I'm not like, oh, get Ten Hag to get Ten Hag. I personally don't think there's a manager that can get me excited anymore, because I don't think that Manchester United can achieve anything under this board. So, but I'm also aware that we've got a fan base that's, you know, pessimistic, optimistic, and there would be a massive amount of excitement around bringing Ten Hag to Manchester United. Definitely, I think a lot of people would see that as a step forward in the right direction, and hopefully it would be. But I don't think Ten Hag on his own would make a massive amount of difference to our title credentials. But I would be willing to give it 3 years, because I think that's the big thing I would want United fans to take on board, is that this would be a 2-3 year project. And I don't think that people like Ronaldo could be part of that project, because in 2 or 3 years, you know, he's 40. He may, you know, for all the De Gea people who think we need a sweeper keeper, he might look at that over the next 2 or 3 years, which is absolutely fine. I'd certainly think he'd look at people like Harry Maguire and, you know, maybe Freds and Scott McTominays, or maybe he turns them into proper players. You know what? I said this when we got Ranić, and I'd say it if we got Ten Hag. The type of coaches that they are and the football that they play, it's very technical, it's very on the front foot, and you've got to be a good footballer. And people can say, well, McTominay's not good enough, Fred's not good enough, but the reality is, you can't say they're not good enough and then say that we've had no development in this team. You know, with proper coaching and proper development, some of these players should get better from this point. I'd expect Bruno to get better. I'd expect Rashford to get better. I'd expect, you know, I'd even expect people like McTominay and Fred to get better. So, look, it's about bringing in the right coach who's going to develop this team, and I think he certainly would do that. What do you think? Ten Hag manager, Ranić director of football, and Van der Sar and technical director feel like that would get the best setup we could possibly get, says Luke. I think that's a great idea, Luke, and I think if the Glazers sold tomorrow and you brought proper owners in, they'd clear house on the board. They would. They'd be listening to fans, they'd be listening to experts, and the only reason that United board and Ed Woodward survived so long is because they had the ear of the Glazers and they were mates. If you got rid of the Glazers and brought proper owners in, they'd clear that board out, they'd clear it out completely, and they would bring in people like Van der Sar and Ranić and proper football people from top to bottom, and then you would see a massive change in the football club. But we're always going to be hindered while we've got this. But look, as I said, breaking news from last night, Ten Hag has his heart set on a move to Manchester United. He'd effectively agreed to take the Manchester United job. What needs to happen now is those talks with Ten Hag. And it's interesting because I've said this a few times, and I've had a few people in the chat say, oh, he won't even leave Ajax. I'm pretty sure, I've always had this information, that he said it in about October, that this would be his last season at Ajax. I don't know whether he said it publicly, but something was said from a very good source about Ten Hag, and he was going to leave Ajax in the summer. And I think it was all around the time when we were looking to sack Solskjaer, or Solskjaer had been sacked, and Ten Hag's name was being mentioned, and either some credible journalist or maybe Ten Hag himself just basically said, look, I'm not going anywhere, I'm focused on Ajax till the summer. And that was the big thing. He's going to leave. How do you think Derby could play out? Can Ralph nick a win or set for another humiliation, says Venkat? Well, we've got the preview for the Derby later. All I would say is, don't miss the preview for the Derby later. You're going to fall off your chair on a stat I've got, which will just completely show you the problem at Manchester United. But get ready for that. That's at 2 o'clock. One thing that could have turned our fortunes, Glazers to be Russians, they could sell and just move out, says Akshay. Mark, what do you think about Darwin Núñez from Benfica? We were speaking about him last night, Ivan. He's definitely an option in the striking positions. It just depends what type of striker we want. I think with Núñez, he's more of a Cavani type striker. I'm not saying he's as good as Cavani, but he's more of a... he's a traditional number 9, whereas with an Isaac, you're getting more of a Thierry Henry type of striker who's quick and explosive and flair. I'm not saying he's good as Thierry Henry either. It depends what type of striker we want. Good morning, Mark. The news about Ten Hag, is it 100% confirmed, Mark, says Jazz? Well, nothing's 100% confirmed in life anyway, apart from probably death. And even that, sometimes they get that wrong. But the reality is, this is a story in a newspaper from a chief writer for the Daily Mail, who's saying that Ten Hag's got his heart set on Manchester United. I would take that with positivity that it is, because it's vague in its very self. It's not saying that United want Ten Hag. It's not saying that United are in talks with Ten Hag. It just says that Ten Hag has his heart set on a move to Manchester United. That's a feeling. That's a feeling. He's Ajax manager at the moment. He knows he's Ajax manager until, June, but his heart's set on a move to Manchester United. I'll take that headline and go, come on United, work with it. Because it's not like, we've agreed a deal or anything like that. It's a declaration of interest from a manager, which I'm sure is interested in coming to Manchester United. And it would be a dream move, because Ajax is a great place for him and he's done great things. But to be honest with you, Everton would be a dream move for him. To manage a Premier League club when you're in the Eredivisie is a big step up. And obviously Manchester United's one of the biggest clubs in the world. It's like Real Madrid wanting him. So I do think it would be a dream job for him. I do think he's got his heart set on it, but obviously we've got to have the conversation with him. And when he has the conversation with us, there might be issues, because he might see that this is not the right job for him. But at the moment, there's encouragement there, and United need to pursue that encouragement. And I would put him at the top of the list, but I'm not on the board at United, and I feel that Pochettino is there. He mentioned leaving again after Overmars was exposed, says Luke. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he has said himself that it's basically his last season. If we get Ten Hag, says Axel, who are some Ajax players you would love to see accommodate him to United? Well, the two that stand out for me, Axel, and look, we should never talk like this. And I have got to talk about Pochettino because Leonardo's spoken about him, and I do want to talk about this story about Harry Maguire. But just staying with this for a moment or two, I remember when we got Jose Mourinho and we were doing a video. God, we've been doing United Stand for so long. We were doing a video about George Mendes, who is the agent of Jose Mourinho. And we were talking about what players are going to come. And we spoke about Fabinho. That never happened. We spoke about Andre Gomez. That never happened. I don't think we actually bought a George Mendes client under Mourinho. So just because you get Ten Hag from Ajax doesn't mean you're going to buy players from Ajax. But if we were going to buy players from Ajax, I do like Anthony, which has been mentioned by you a lot, and I really like Gravenbach, but unfortunately he's a Mino Raiola client, and that can be problematic. So those two would jump out to me, but it doesn't mean we're going to get them. Ten Hag equals step in the right direction, would bring the best out of certain players. Got to make do with the board, but I'd be happy with that for now, says Tom Grant. And I want a manager that won't play players that are not good enough, but but this can happen without the board interfering with the manager's decision, says Rashid. I think, for me, as I said yesterday, or was it last night, when you think about Poch and you think about Ten Hag, it's not just Poch and Ten Hag's style of play, it's the type of players that they're going to buy. And I think Pochettino, for me, I stereotypically think Harry Kane, Declan Rice, he'll pick Harry Maguire as his captain. I just think Pochettino will do that because he's ingrained in the Premier League and, he embraces the Britishness of the Premier League. And I think he'll go down that route, which is the route we've been down for years. We have a British core. We spend a lot of money on players. I think Ten Hag goes in a different direction and goes more like Rangnick would like to go, where he's spending 40, 50 million pounds on players, and it's a more, it's not full of headlines. It's more about the team and how you play. So that's interesting. But another thing that's more interesting and new, I haven't said this before, is that in relation to Pochettino, if you bring Pochettino into the club, I think he's hype. He might do well, but I think there's hype with Pochettino. Oh, he's renewing his battle with Poch. He's renewing his his desire to win the Premier League. It comes with a load of baggage, and I think there's an expectation with that hype that we deliver sooner than we can. Poch will take that job with a lot of pressure anyway, because not a lot of people want Poch. But I also think that the press and there'll be a bigger noise around Poch, and there'll be a bigger expectation because he's been here before and he's a bigger name. So, I think Poch would have to deliver quicker, and the pressure would be on quicker. I think with Ten Hag, I feel that even in the press, but definitely the fan base, there's a maturity about Ten Hag that it would be his first job in England. You would have to be patient. The expectation would not be that we're going to win anything in the first year or two. And therefore, he would get the time to do the job. And that is a big reason to go for Ten Hag as well. Because, in fairness, even if Poch gets the job, there has to be that patience of a 2-3 year rebuild, which I just don't feel that Poch would get that patience. But I think Ten Hag would. And United need to take things like that on board. Because ultimately, they do. They do listen to what the fans say. They don't like to, but they do listen to what the media says as well. And if they want more time and they want patience and they want a fan base that's, ready to see what happens, then the obvious pick is Ten Hag. Hi, Mark. Do you think Ten Hag is wanted by other top clubs in Europe? Other words, is he highly rated? Also, love your work. And the honesty and the bluntness, says Michael Kim. I think with Ten Hag that Manchester City would take him. I think Liverpool would take him. And I think Chelsea would take him. The fortunate thing for Manchester United is that none of those clubs at this moment in time are looking for a manager. And again, you make a great point, Michael, because again, this is another reason United should be all over it. I think United panic. I think United are very social media aware. They're very brand aware. And what I fear United will do is Poch, Ten Hag, they both interview well. They both give a good account of what they want to do. And United go, well, let's go with Poch because he's more well known, right? Nobody else wants Ten Hag at the moment. And the problem is nobody wants Ten Hag because nobody's looking for a manager at the moment. I guarantee if Pep retired this summer and Klopp retired this summer, we wouldn't get Ten Hag because either Man City or Liverpool would. United need to get that into their head. The only reason they might have a clear path at Ten Hag this summer is because, for once, it's fallen good for us. If you think about the season that Sir Alex Ferguson retired, Mourinho had already gone to Chelsea. I think Ancelotti had gone somewhere. We ended up with David Moyes. We've got a great opportunity this summer, especially around the Ten Hag opportunity. I really believe top clubs would want him, but they're not able to take him because Pep's going to still be at City, Klopp's going to still be at Liverpool, and Tuchel's going to still be at Chelsea. So we should not be put off by the fact that no big club's going for him, because actually there's no big club that can. Real Madrid's interesting, sacking, maybe they could, but I think he's the right choice. I don't think he's the definite guaranteed success choice. It could fail miserably, but I do think he's the right choice. Which brings me on to Poch. Interesting quote about Pochettino. This is coming from Leonardo, who is the director of football at PSG. Basically, what he said is, and it's a direct quote: "We've never thought about changing our manager. We've never contacted Zidane or anyone. I can say that Maurizio Pochettino has never asked to leave, and I have no problem with him. We talk about everything." And that's Leonardo. Now, look, some people would be like, "Oh my God! Oh my God, clap the hands together, 1, 2, 3, it's happening, here we go. Ten Hag to Manchester United, get your suitcase, you're flying in tomorrow." And people could really genuinely think that because you've got a story this morning saying that Ten Hag's dream move is Manchester United. And then you've got effectively Pochettino's boss saying that we don't want to lose Pochettino and we get on really, really well. But we know it's silly season and we know that PSG would not come out and say, yeah, we want Zidane and we don't want Poch anymore, because there's compensation, they're still in the Champions League, there's all sorts going on. So I'd take Leonardo's comments with a pinch of salt as much as I'd take the Ten Hag to Manchester United with a pinch of salt. But the positive for me is that there is a movement for Ten Hag, and I think that he is the right man for the job. And United, the only people that matter in this, it doesn't matter what Leonardo said, it doesn't matter what Pochettino says, it doesn't matter what Ten Hag says. The only people that matter in this are Manchester United's board and how far they're willing to go to get the right man. And ultimately, if we've got Pochettino in the summer, that's because the board decided to go against what most fans want and do what they think is right, because they trust their specialism. I would say, look at your last 9 years. That's twice I've paid for a chat. You've ignored it. Followed United for 50 years. I don't get why you would do that. I watch show because I like the way you think. Disappointed, to Stu Mallon. Sorry, Stu. I mean, ultimately, some super chats get missed because we're on a news show. So I apologise for that. But most of them that get read out, Stu. So I apologise for that. Ten Hag would be great for the fans and the Glazers because they won't be needing to buy a lot as Ajax build youth. RV, yeah, look, he would use youth. There's no doubt of that. Do you think Ten Hag is wanted by... I've done that one from Michael as well. So, yeah, look, in relation to Leonardo, I think that is an interesting one. But I wouldn't take too much notice of that. Let's just see what happens with the managerial situation. But I am encouraged this morning. Yeah, it's interesting. Rogers in. Stu says thank you and accepted. Sorry, Stu. I don't normally miss them. They normally pop up at the top, so I apologise for that. What's this story about Harry Maguire, Mark? Says Connor. Okay, so let's get straight into this then. So look, again, it's a story from the paper, but it's from the Thames. It's not from the Thames. It's from the Times, and they're basically saying this. Some players have felt that some of Harry Maguire's performances this season have not met the club standards, and they have aired their grievances amongst themselves at Carrington. Harry Maguire's continued selection in the starting lineup has been privately questioned by members of the squad. His dip in form has not impressed some of his teammates. So basically, it's just basically saying that players can't understand why Harry Maguire is being picked all the time when he's not playing well. Now, look, if you ask Bruno Fernandes about that or anybody else about that, they'll say, no, what a load of nonsense. We all think Harry's a top-class player. He's the captain of the club. We're all behind him. That's what you'll get publicly. 100% that's what you're going to get publicly. But privately, although, whenever I hear a story, I go, well, is it true? Well, it's true. I'm not saying... I'm not telling you who the players are who are saying it. I'm not even saying the players are saying it. But the substance of the story is true. If I was a Manchester United player or you was a Manchester United player, would you be sat there in training when Harry's not there going, how does he get picked every game? He's playing rubbish. How is he playing? He's crap in training. He's crap on the pitch. He's walking, leading us out. How is it? How does it keep happening? And if we're doing it as fans and the media's doing it, and even ex-players are doing it now, Slow Sports News. Slow Sports News. Rio Ferdinand says that Harry Maguire's too slow to be a centre-back in a high line. He said it last week. Slow Sports News. Manchester United fans have been saying it for 2 years. But an ex-player's finally woken up and smelt the coffee. Slow Sports News there. Breaking news. He wants the credit. He wants the credit for it. Because it's regurgitated Slow Sports News. But look, Rio's not the first. You know, I remember Gary Neville talking about the midfield about a year too late. They talk about it when it's safe to do it, when they know that when they talk about it, it's going to be received well. The brave are you people who hit on something early and are willing to put your opinion out there, even though it might receive a little bit of flack. But look, Rio's speaking about it. The media's talking about it, and the fans have been talking about it for a very long time. Footballers are not all stupid. And you know what? If I was a footballer, people will say, oh, it's probably Lindelof and Eric Bailly because they're not getting as much game time as they should. It could be them, but also it's not just about the people who aren't getting picked for Harry Maguire. Appointing a good manager is one thing, backing him season out is another. Exactly, Furhat, and that's what worries me. Ignore this one, Mark, just trying to make Stu feel better, says James C. He's all right. He said he's fine. Stu's fine. Justice for Stu. He's more famous now than he ever would have been off his super chat. De Gea being an issue is the current early problem that gets a lot of flack, says George. Well, you might be right, George. George is against De Gea. I know that, and I respect George as a moderator. He's been here for a long time. He's like a family pet now. But it's not Sue, it's Stu, says Raz. Stu! But no, I mean, look, maybe we'll see what happens with De Gea. But all I would say about De Gea, George, is that it's not a problem for now. There's about 20 problems before we look at De Gea. And that's what I'm saying. And maybe that will be a problem in the future. But going back to the Harry Maguire story, yes, if you're Eric Bailly or Victor Lindelof, you're going to be sat there moaning, why is he being picked all the time when he's rubbish? Of course you are. It's your livelihood. You believe. Imagine that. Any area of work. Imagine if there's somebody who's getting your spot in front of you and you're better than them and they're underperforming. That's one of the most frustrating things in life, when somebody's getting a place ahead of you in an unjust way. But it won't just be Bay and Lindelof. Even if it is Bay and Lindelof, it might be Bruno, it might be Luke Shaw, it might be Varane. Because, all right, you're still playing, but you're playing with somebody that's making your team weak. So I wouldn't say it's, the lazy assumption is to say, oh, this will just be players who aren't getting picked and he is being picked. But I think that's lazy. If I was playing in the midfield, if I was playing up front, I'd still get annoyed with him playing. I'd be like, come on, he's not up to it. Get somebody else in. So, look, we'll never get to the bottom of that. It's just a paper story, in fairness, and it might be true, it might not be true. And if you've tuned in a bit late, there's a story in the Times today saying that certain United players are getting frustrated with Harry Maguire's continued selection when he's not playing well. We'll never get to the bottom of that. This is just a normal paper story that could be true, could be a load of nonsense. But the fact is, whether it's a load of nonsense or whether it's true, the actual substance of the story is true. He is being picked above others and he doesn't deserve to be. Be very interesting if he starts on Sunday. Hi Mark, do you think Ancelotti will be bought in just to retain Ronaldo given their good relationship from Madrid? No, Nikhil, I don't think we'd do anything like that, because the only thing, you don't need to appoint a manager to keep Ronaldo at the club. You need to get Champions League football. Biggie says, you're becoming a propaganda show against Poch. Why give a scenario where Poch takes the job with restrictions but HAG refuses it? That's propaganda, says Biggie Third. Mate, it's a fan channel. And it's always going to be opinionated. I personally disagree with you, but I have to give an opinion. If we get Poch, I'll back him. I don't think he's the right choice. But the reality is that Pochettino has already worked in the Premier League under restrictions. We have a manager at Spurs at the moment who is moaning about working under restrictions at Spurs. Pochettino worked there for however many years. Pochettino will work under restrictions at Manchester United. Ten Hag may not work under those restrictions at Manchester United. He may well work under those restrictions at United. I don't know. But if either manager comes to United and works under restrictions, then we're going to be talking about this for the next 10 years, that we're not going to win a title. Those restrictions need to go. Whether it's Pochettino, whether it's Ten Hag, whether it's somebody else, if they have to work under restrictions at United, we will fail. That's not propaganda, that's fact, because look at the last 9 years. Every manager's worked under restrictions and we've never been in a title race. So you can say it's propaganda against Poch. It's not propaganda against Poch. I'm openly prefer Ten Hag to Poch. But if we get Poch, I'll have to back him, of course I will. I'm mature enough to do that, and I think most of our fan base is. But it's not propaganda to say that restrictions are a bad thing. And Ten Hag might refuse to take the job if there's restrictions there, because he might see it as a career killer. We don't know. But Pochettino won't refuse the job with restrictions because he's done it already at Spurs, in my opinion. Can confirm Stu and I are different people, says Butterpants. Captain Monopoly, I'm not that cool. Stu, says Butterpants. We never focus on the next steps, says the Studio Saga, although always looking for a long-term appointment. Focus on the next recruitment. Consult Ranić and the transfers will get better when compounded together, says the Studio Saga. Very, very intelligent and correct observation. I think that the path forward for Manchester United is not great, in my opinion. I think we're in trouble. We are staring down the barrel of Europa League football next year. I've enjoyed having Thursday nights off. There's a very big chance we're back in the Europa League. There's a very big chance we're off to God knows where next season in the group stage of the Europa League. It's embarrassing. The chances of us being in the Champions League next season are very, very, very slim. So I feel that the long-term projection for Manchester United is not great, but that you can't give in. I don't think many people are going to walk away from Manchester United and say I don't support them anymore, and that's not being a proper supporter of the club. So you've got to try and map a way, and as the previous chat said, the way forward for me is that the way forward for me is to bring in someone like Ten Hag, keep Ranić as the sort of director of football, and then rebuild the club with 40, 50 million pound signings instead of 80, 90 million pound signings. Did you see the news today about the Super League relaunching, says Jay? I'll have a look at that. Have you met Sir Alex Ferguson? Says Ronaldo. No. Super League to be announced today. 12 clubs, says Dan. And surely Ralph and Ten Hag together would work great, says Stu. I think that was the one he was moaning about. I think you're very, very right, Stu, there. Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm just trying to find this story about the Super League because I have seen something on Twitter when I was live. The Super League clubs are set to announce changes to the competition's format today, with it set to become an open competition containing no permanent members. So the Super League returns today, apparently. Look, the reality is that when it comes to the Super League, I'm firmly against it. We've spoken about the Super League in quite a lot of depth over the last 12 months. Well, not quite 12 months yet. It was April, wasn't it? I've even spoken on shows about how arrogant the Super League was. Do you think it's worth giving Ghana a go next year, says Ivan? I've spoken about that in depth. And we... I think with Ghana, it's just very much about what United decide to do with him. It's a bit like the managerial situation, really. I don't mind him being involved in the first team if he's going to be playing a few games, but I also think that he should be playing in the Premier League consistently. I'd like to see him go on loan for Brighton. I don't think he's going to be ready next season to play every week at CDM because I've never known a player do that. Go from the Championship as a youth player on loan to playing every week. So I just worry about the expectation with Ghana. I'm very aware over the years that with young players, you've got to nurture them, you've got to be patient with them, and I don't know whether we as a football club are in that position to do that at the moment. I don't know whether it's the right place to chuck a player in as a CDM and then he has a bad game and people are like, oh, he's not the answer. Well, he will never be the answer because he's going to have to be given patience and time. On the Super League, though, I'm very wary of it. I always said that they were very arrogant what they did. They thought they could just say, we're off to do our own league and it's a closed shop and this is what we're going to do. And it fell terribly on the fan base who were in absolute uproar. What they should have done is they should have been not so arrogant and seen that fans wouldn't like it. And what they should have done is basically said, we're creating a Super League and it's going to be an open tournament. Because it's not an open tournament, really. Your Super League has 12 teams in it. It's the same 12 teams that were in it last year in the closed shop. Basically, you say, right, we're starting the Super League with 12 teams. The 12 teams that are starting it are the 12 teams last year, but we will have a relegation or whatever like that, an open tournament for people to get into it. The thing is, as soon as you start that Super League, the very first year, the 12 clubs that are in it will make so much money that they will never really get relegated. They'll be just so rich. It won't be an open... It's not going to be an open tournament, because if it's an open tournament, the first 12 teams in it should be the top 3 in each league. But that wouldn't work, because then what about Ajax and people like that? That's an open tournament. This is basically going to be the same 12 superpowers who say it's an open tournament, but then make so much money from the first year of it, they'll never get relegated anyway. And they'll always bounce back with parachute payments and stuff like that. I guarantee if you get relegated from that Super League, they'll give you like 200 million, something like that. So what's wrong with this format of the Super League, John? Because there's nothing wrong. There's a lot of people who quite like it, but for me, I can see straight through it. This is just a deceptive way of doing what they wanted to do in the first place, which is a closed shop, money pit for them to make money. Do you think Chelsea will drop points because of club sellout? Says Kalka. Don't really care, to be honest. Got no interest in it. That's Chelsea's problem, not mine. Obviously, it's a very big political issue that the owner of Chelsea is Russian. But leave it to the authorities. I always find these sort of things very hard because, do Chelsea deserve to have points docked because of their owner? This is why I'm not getting involved in it, because I'm not a Chelsea fan. Fletcher will be manager. The club are driving social media spin on Ten Hag and Poch. Fletcher has 3 roles already and he's understudy to Ralph, says Daniel. Yeah. I mean, this is why I don't bother getting involved in it. That's why I don't get involved in it, because we're not a Chelsea fan channel, and basically United fans want Chelsea to get points docked so we can get top 4. I mean, that would just be typical United, wouldn't it? You know, we have an embarrassing season and then we get top 4 because somebody gets points docked. I mean, do I want us to get top 4 based on that? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, look, we've got the preview coming up at 2 o'clock. I'll tell you what, you need to watch it. It's going to be very, very interesting. You might not like it, but it's factual and it's very interesting in relation to what Manchester United's problems are at the moment. So let's talk about it. Happy birthday to Joe Donovan, by the way. Thanks everyone for watching. What a great show. A little bit of encouragement around Manchester United for a change. Make sure you smash a like on the video, and you don't want to miss the video at 2 o'clock. It's the preview for the Manchester derby with a twist. Something that's going to really interest you, I think. Thanks for watching. I'll speak to you all in a bit.